you, Darlene, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. And I've been waiting, patiently to come back because we had so much fun last time.
Yeah, I that show is still one of the tops for everybody. We haven't got a chance to really talk about that show, but people have asked me. A lot of people watch the show that are beginning their journey of understanding everything that you talk about,
Mhm,
and so they had never heard of your book before, your
mhm,
codependency book, the initial one for dummies,
mhm.
and they were hooked. This is the website that you can go to and get a great deal of information from, and will give you great insight in regards to Darlene and who she is and what she's all about. Uh, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about necessarily who Darlene is and what she's all about, but I want to get to the number of books that you have published. How many altogether?
Well, now it's 10.
Yeah. Wow.
Three paperbacks and
Wow.
seven
Wow. Wow.
ebooks.
Yeah.
And by the way, my website is whatiscodependency.com.
Yes, it is indeed that. Matter of fact, just for the record, let me go ahead and do that while I'm thinking about it. I've got that up here for you. It's right here. So, this is the
Yeah.
website. I need everybody to go to this website. I need you to take the time to invest in your mental health, especially during Mental Health Month, month of May. But connect with Darlene. You will not regret it. My daughters love your book. It is still one of
Mhm,
their go-to books when they're
mhm,
reviewing information. Your
mhm,
codependency book.
mhm.
Your other books cover a number of different things. So I'm going to put a few things up on the screen. I just mentioned to you, I've been researching you deeply, even more than before, the past 2 weeks. So I'm going to put certain phrases that are from your book, and feel free to expound on them and explain some of them for
Great idea.
individuals.
I love that.
Is that okay? I was trying to find a way to cram everything in because I wanted to do it within 45 minutes to an hour. Here we go, Darlene. I'm just going to put things on the screen, and
Good.
let's go from there. Let's go ahead and do this first. Another thing I wanted to do before we get into it, everybody, I need everybody to also do me a favor. I need you to do this. Go here. I really hope, especially you viewers and supporters of our channel and subscribers, I need you to follow her Instagram page. Please show your love for her and show her some love on her YouTube channel as well, under the same name, if I'm not remember correctly.
Right. Right.
Yes. Please show some love to my guests, all of them. But today, the lady of the day, the diva of the day, is Darlene. Show some love to her for that. Um, well, here we go. Of course, your name is attached to this word, but
Mhm.
as succinct and as concise and briefly as possible, explain this for the viewers. Many of them just beginning their journey. What is codependency?
Okay, well, there is no one definition. And my definition is that it's when someone who can't access their innate feelings and thoughts, and then instead their thinking and behavior revolves around someone else
Okay.
or something else, because addicts are codependent too, whether it's a substance or a process like gambling or sex addiction.
Mhm.
Underneath is codependency. And so all of their thinking behavior revolves around something external to themselves.
Okay. Now, since that's the case, what, and again, these are words from all of your books that I was
Mhm.
able to access, which I went up to 8. So I missed one. So,
Wow.
so man, I thought I was on it. Okay, so here we go. Another word. Please expound on this word that's in actually one of your main books that you have, a great book. The word shame.
Okay. Well, yeah, I wrote a whole book about shame. And
Yeah.
interestingly, it is what links codependence and narcissism. It's underneath both disorders. And and I can go into more how that gets manifest and expressed. But shame is a very painful emotion, affect. And whereas self esteem is more how you think about yourself, shame is more of a feeling. And it's profoundly painful because you're alienated not just from other people, but all of the positive aspects of yourself. So you just feel like you're all bad, inferior, inadequate. Uh, it could take a specific trait like unattractive, I'm not smart enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm too
Mhm.
fat, or this or that. But
Mhm.
it could focus on one subject
Okay.
or one trait.
Mhm.
But underneath is, if you really want to look at the bottom line, it's not feeling lovable. They
Okay.
might be not feeling likable.
And
Some people,
that likable and lovable that word lovable. You also mentioned that in a couple of your books.
right?
I just I'm going to talk about it maybe a little bit more if we get a chance to. But
Mm-hmm.
why is it important that a person feels lovable, especially if their caregivers or parents didn't give them that?
Okay. Well, first of all, a parent telling you they love you is not enough. They need to want to have a relationship with you. They have to be interested in you, and not just for what you achieve or how you perform to their liking,
Hmm.
but for who you are as an individual, separate and apart from their goals and aspirations for you. So, in other words, loving the authentic you. If it's not that, it's conditional love. And that creates all kinds of problems because then you're constantly having to achieve and to perform to feel good enough, but it's never enough. And so, and it has to come from both parents that they're interested in you for who you are, that they want a relationship with you. That tells a child that they're loved. And if they don't get that, they never feel good about themselves inside. They carry around this shame. Most of the time, for many people, it's unconscious.
Mm.
They may,
Wow.
glimmers of it.
Hmm.
And then it's hard to get into a relationship and feel loved because you don't feel worthy of it. You don't feel worthy of receiving. This is very common with codependents. They're used to giving, and they think if they give and give and give, then it'll be returned. But it doesn't work that way.
Mm.
They attract a narcissist or just someone who's selfish, and they don't get their needs met. Half the time, they don't even know or value their needs because they don't feel worthy. It
Mm.
just, the symptoms go on and on and on. But you, if you are abusing yourself, you're going to attract abuse. And most people don't
Right.
even realize how abusive they are with themselves, the way they talk to themselves, the way they treat themselves. So the antidote is self-love in the end. It's an
Right.
inside job. You can't get it from the outside or someone else.
Searching outside of oneself is not going to give it to a person. They need to, as you put it, have this self love. It's an inside job. But then I'm going to put this word up. What if they're dealing with this then? Denial.
Uh-huh. Right. That's a trait of addiction and codependency.
Uh,
It is a defense that narcissists use. It's a defense to shame. I was in denial of my own shame for many years.
wow.
It came to me in a dream
Huh.
that there was a woman named Shame and I needed to get to know her. So,
Okay. That's pretty good.
and at the time I was teaching about self esteem.
I was going to ask you, yeah, what time of your life was that? How many?
A few decades ago,
Okay.
I can't quite remember, but
Yeah.
I went into psychoanalysis and I really worked on this issue. So, um, so denial helps us survive. So we might be in an abusive relationship and not realize it because if we really face it, then we'd have to do something about it. So codependents are in denial of their feelings often. Some people are aware of their feelings, they have a head start,
Hmm.
in denial of their needs, denial of their wants, because if they weren't honored and recognized as a child, then they don't learn that they have value. It's part of having worth. That it's not just because I'm a good student or
Hmm.
because I do what my parents say that I'm a good girl or a nice boy, a good boy. It's because my needs have value, my feelings
Hmm.
have value, my wants have value. And oftentimes parents ignore or shame a child's needs and feelings. You shouldn't feel that way, or
Hmm.
they don't listen, they don't have time.
Hmm.
A lot of times shaming is unintentional. It's not because they're telling you, "Oh, I wish you'd never been born," and horrible things that some parents say, or they're
Hmm.
beating you or abusing you physically or in some other way. They might just be too busy. are too self-centered, or they have marital stress, or financial stress, and they don't have time to really focus on the children. So,
But making sure that our needs are met, it
mhm.
still would be up on us to make sure that we're doing the inner work, especially if we become adults. May become challenging, of course, of a person if it's a child, but a person still, you're saying, has to work on their self-worth.
They have to be able to identify. Well, there's some part of that is identifying your needs.
Okay.
So, if you feel down, let's say, you might not realize, first of all, you might not even recognize it or be able to name it. So a lot of people can't name their feelings. They just say,
Yeah.
I'm upset. Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't tell me if you're angry,
That's
you're
a
sad,
lot. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
or guilty. I don't really know what that means. And so be able to actually name your feelings is important. I list in the Dummies book about
Mm-hmm.
200 feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And basically there's like sad, mad, glad, afraid,
Mm-hmm.
guilty. And then there's variations and combinations. Shame is like guilt and sadness together. And so being able to name them, and then you have to ask yourself, what do I need? So growing up, a parent, uh, if they're a good parent, will empathize with you and tell you, oh, Johnny, you're feeling sad.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I can see that you're sad. I understand. And maybe give them a hug. Or you're afraid, and I see that you're afraid. And let me talk to you about that and what you can do to not feel afraid. So it's a combination of empathy and help. So I tell people and my clients, I say, name your feeling out loud. This is very helpful. Research has shown this. And call yourself by name. So I'd say, oh, Darlene, you're feeling resentful. Name it, call yourself by name, and then say, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then add on, you're angry, you're sad, you're guilty, whatever it is, and it's okay. Because most people don't think their feelings are okay. I shouldn't be angry. I should have gotten over that. I shouldn't be sad anymore. I should be happy. Look at all the things I have in my life. I should be happy. And they keep shaming. That's shaming. So feelings can get shamed and needs can get shamed. And then you deny, and then you deny them, because why feel a need if it's not going to get satisfied?
So,
Or why
so
feel pain if it's no one's going to comfort you?
if the feelings and the shame, excuse me, if the feelings and the needs get shamed, and that becomes something that they experience maybe from a caregiver, we're
Mhm.
talking about this could become a lifestyle then, based upon what you're saying. A person could have a lifestyle of their feelings and their needs being shamed, so they don't even really understand what they are, let alone speak up.
That's right.
When
So they end up getting in relationships where their needs aren't met and they don't even
got
know,
it,
and they
got
don't
it.
even care. They're
Yeah.
just meeting the needs of the other person and thinking, unconsciously thinking that they're going to get their needs met. With the narcissist, it's a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
never going to be
Never gonna.
satisfied because they have shame underneath, and they're out of touch with all of their vulnerable feelings and their emotional needs. So they choose someone who's more empathetic and in touch with their feelings, and you kind of supply that for them.
Right. Okay.
And
Now you said the V word is vulnerable. Another word you use in
mhm.
your books. I have a list of stuff here. I
Great. I'm
know I'm
glad
not
you
going
give
to
everybody
care. No, no,
homework.
I'm not. I don't want to sound like a stalker either. I just want you to know. I'm going to clarify that because we're really not that far from each other. So I'm not stalking you. But I'm going to put it up. Here you go. You said the V word, vulnerable. So honesty and vulnerable. I noticed throughout your books, these are very interesting qualities and traits that need to come into play. How do these two words come into play when it's a narcissist or when it's a codependent?
Wow. We could
I
spend a
know,
whole hour on that.
I know, but
Okay.
we can't. But go ahead.
Okay.
We're just gonna
So,
have to run a series of shows. I don't know because this is
okay,
there's
that's
so
okay.
much in your books. I'm just saying. I'm amped up. Go ahead.
Yeah, good. So the antidote to shame is authenticity. Okay. So let's talk about the codependent. And by the way, I think that narcissists are codependent too. I wrote a blog about that.
Yeah.
I have a chapter in my book where I go through all of the traits and symptoms of codependency, and I compare the narcissist and the codependent, one for one. They often manifest differently, but underneath, they're the same. So many codependents have difficulty being honest and vulnerable. So if you're denying your feelings, then you can't be vulnerable, you can't express them. Then there's people who are aware of their needs and their feelings, but they don't feel entitled to them. So they don't feel like they have a right to them. Like it would be selfish if I asked for that.
Right.
Or if it would feel humiliating to ask for more attention. So that when they get involved with a narcissist who takes up the whole room and they're always like feeding the narcissist or focusing on someone like an addict who needs a lot of attention too. And they put their needs aside, so that you have to be able to identify them, name them, and then give them value. And then to express them, to be vulnerable. So I remember many years ago, I went to a workshop and being a risk taker, I volunteered to be like in the center of this group of like 30 people. And at one point, something came up, which I don't remember. And I asked the facilitator, I said, I guess I was feeling very vulnerable or something. And I said, I really need a hug from this woman. And she said, Darlene, you're going to have to ask for it. And I was like, oh my God, that was really hard. And it felt like another level of shame because that would be really vulnerable. It's one thing to say, I need it, but then to ask and maybe someone say no, that puts you, that's being more vulnerable. Okay. So after the workshop, a lot of people came over and said, oh, you really know yourself. That was like so great that you were able to say, I need a hug. And yet, you know, that leader thought I need to take it to the next step. In a way, she was shaming me, but because she wasn't honoring my need, but it was a lesson for me nonetheless. Now, so you have to know them, and then you have to take the risk. Then it requires something else, probably is on your list, assertiveness. So
how did you do that? No, seriously. We're like a few hours away from each other. How in the world did you just do that? It is further down my list, but now I don't have to do it. Go ahead.
Well, to be honest and to be vulnerable, you have to be assertive. You have to be able to make I statements instead of saying you're so selfish, like someone would say to a narcissist. You have to say, I need X or Y from you. You have to take ownership of it. Again, that means feeling entitled instead of ashamed of your needs. You know, you could look at narcissistic codependence like on a seesaw or the flip side of one another. So whereas a narcissist feels overly entitled compared to everybody else, codependents don't have enough sense of entitlement. They don't ask for their needs. They waive their needs all the time. They don't want to make waves, so they give them up. So that means having the courage to be vulnerable and having the words, again, I statements, assertiveness. And then you have to realize that your partner may or may not, or friend may or may not accommodate that. And then you can negotiate or be okay with it. But codependent relationships, no one takes I statements. They're always pointing the finger and saying, you didn't do this or you never do that. And nobody wants to take a position. And so they keep blaming each other. It doesn't get, no one's needs get met. And they
nothing gets done. Nothing gets done.
Yeah. What movie do you want to see? I don't know. What do you want to see?
Where do you want to eat? Where are we going to know? Where do you want to go? Just to the codependents, and then they're stuck in they're stuck on the street. They never left the house or
and then
in the car. Nothing gets done.
Blaming each other. Like, oh, last time.
Well, why don't you? I asked you. Why don't you say? You know, and then you go.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's like a skit from Seinfeld. It just goes on and on.
Right. Okay. So now on the narcissist side, wait 1 second.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, the narcissist side, the most, the worst thing that they feel shame about is looking weak, because for them, I just had another thought. I'll come back to it. For them,
I love this is why you were so good the first time around, and everybody said, Paxton, why do you do 2 hours? I said that woman she has to do other things. She can't be with us all day. No, go ahead, please. Hold
yeah,
on to
for a
those thoughts. Yes.
narcissist, they prioritize power
Okay.
and will sacrifice the relationship to get it. So,
Wow.
and my
Okay.
book is all about changing this dynamic, and the codependent or the partner or the friend prioritizes the relationship and will sacrifice themselves to keep it. So you have the narcissist prioritizing power and their partner prioritizing the relationship. So what does that mean? Usually, a codependent feels a lot of shame if they're called selfish, if they're called uncaring, anything that is like the opposite of being a good partner, a loving partner,
Yeah.
relationship skills, relationship values. On the other hand, a narcissist feels the most shame if you call them weak, because they want to be on top.
Mm-hmm.
You know, codependent will waive their rights, waive their needs. They want to don't make waves to get along. A narcissist doesn't care about getting along. They want to get ahead. They want to be on top. So being vulnerable with their feelings, this makes intimacy very hard for them, is something that they don't want to do. They don't want to be open. They don't want to be vulnerable. Instead, they might go on the attack or they'll withdraw. That's one of the dynamics in relationships. And I go into this in my book on shame, that usually when someone feels shame, they either withdraw or attack. And you can also look at this as a primal reaction, like a trauma reaction, fight or flight. And often they'll just attack themselves.
Right.
There you have it on the screen.
Well, I told you I got tons of stuff.
You're reading my mind. Okay.
I'm not quick enough to put each one up as you go because you're hitting all these points. I see my outline right here of the show, and you're just hitting all of them.
You're understanding my book.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about this one. Narcissistic shame. Shed light on that for individuals to understand. What do you mean when you say narcissistic shame?
Okay. Well, narcissistic really, in that sense, has nothing to do with NPD, the diagnosis. It means like individual shame. Okay. So there's group shame, class shame, like being of a lower class, being of a
culture shame, political shame, religious shame, number.
Right.
Is that what
you mean? Narcissistic is individual. So when it's group shame, at least you're part of a group. So you know other people are in the same situation. When it's a narcissistic shame, it means that I'm uniquely bad. Okay. I'm uniquely unlovable. Something about me as an individual. And that's the most painful, because you feel like, alienated from no one would like me.
And when a person gets into that position, they can see themselves as a victim then, or no?
Well, they might. I don't know that you could see yourself as a victim for a lot of reasons, but
okay. All right. Well, when the word, for example, the word victim, give us your perspective on that word. It's often thrown about nowadays. How do you approach that word? How would you describe it?
Yeah. I remember many years ago, I was in Al-Anon, which I've written about in my book. And I remember one time my sponsor said to me, Darlene, you're sounding like a victim. And I felt ashamed. I felt judged. And I said, well, I don't want to feel that way. And she apologized. So it's when you really feel powerless, I think. You feel like you have no control over circumstances and things are happening to you. So a lot of codependents feel that way because they're not standing up for themselves. I have a blog about anger and resentment. And one of the reasons, and self-pity, I think, is a defense to shame. It's kind of close to feeling like a victim because it's like, it's external. The responsibility is out there. It's not my responsibility. So when you don't have the skills, when you're in denial, like, all these bad things are happening to you. You probably never were protected as a child,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't feel you have rights. So you're going to be in a situation where you're exploited, you're abused, you're not getting your needs met.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have a lot of self-pity and feel like a victim. And to me, there's fear and anger. Talk
Okay.
about emotions being combinations. So when someone is feeling, it's not self-compassion.
All right.
There's love there and compassion for yourself, which when you have self-pity, you have a lot of anger. Like, why is the world doing this to me? Now, I want to say that, and I have a blog called like 10 ways not to be a victim or something like that.
Okay.
A lot of people are victims. And as a child, you're a victim if you're being abused. So if you've been raped, you're a victim. So I don't mean to say that anybody who's abused is responsible for everything that happens to them and they're never victims.
Without a
Sometimes
doubt. Yeah. Right.
you are a
Right.
victim.
That's not what you're saying for sure.
No,
But
but
sometimes people are a victim because of situations and circumstances that happen to them.
right. And of course. And then I want to mention Darvo.
Yeah.
So that's an acronym. And that's something that abusers use, especially narcissists. And the D stands for denial. The A stands for accuse, and the R stands for reverse, and then V stands for victim, and O stands for offender. So what happens if you confront a narcissist or any abuser directly, they feel attacked. By the way, they have very thin skin. They feel criticized if you look at them cross-eyed. So, and that's because of the shame underneath. It's like they're in denial of their shame, and that's why they have to be on top. We could go through all of the traits of a narcissist. You'll see that almost all of them go back to shame. But in any event, what an abuser will do is they'll deny their behavior, and then they'll go on the attack. So this is like what we're talking about, attack and withdrawal. They'll go on the attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's the A, and then they'll reverse victim and offender. So now they put you on the defensive.
Mm.
So their philosophy is the best defense is an offense.
Wow.
So I'm going to put you on the defensive. So then I'm going to be strong, like a bully.
Yeah.
Because
Like
they
a
never
bully.
want to be weak or be on the defensive or be vulnerable. So what they do is they go on the attack. And you have to learn not to react to that. So
Okay. All
you
right.
take it
Now,
personally.
I'm telling you, you're in for a treat now because here comes the fun part of the show. All right. First, to those of you who will watch this back later and those that are with us right now, the new book is entitled Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist. That is the new book that you have out. Of course, you have your blog, your website. You have so many ways in which individuals can learn and grow from their situations with you. But your new book, Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist, we literally do not have enough time for me to get all that's in my head from looking at your book. Thank you for sending me some info ahead of time for the show. But I want to point to these. You mentioned three things, personality styles. I'm going to put one of them up. Hopefully it'll ring a bell with you. I have three of them. This is the first one. Seek to relate to feel safe. You've described that type of personality, a person who seeks to relate to feel safe. Can you explain a little bit more for those who have no idea what that may be?
Right. Okay. I think this comes from the book on shame.
Yeah.
And people or children generally do one of three things to cope with a dysfunctional family environment. Either they want to connect and please their parent to feel safe. So if I'm a good boy, if I'm a good girl, if I listen, I won't get into trouble. And they want to do this to feel loved and feel safe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's one type. And then I call it the accommodator.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to accommodating, and then they do this in their relationships. And some of it is based on personality style or inherited traits. And then there's another person I call a master. And they feel safe. If I have power,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
No,
trying to keep up to you because I
that's great.
just
We're really
you
in
just
sync.
you just keep going. I'm gonna see if I can kind of actually keep up with you. But go
We're
ahead.
great. It's like we planned this together.
It really does.
We didn't, everybody.
Last time we talked was like a month ago, other than today.
Mhm.
But go ahead.
So, so it's like, so they, instead of moving towards people, they push people away.
Mhm.
So if you think of it biologically, either you move towards someone or you withdraw or you push people away. So that's what a narcissist does. And some people do it, they're not narcissists too. And then you have the third type. He's going to step back. I don't want to get involved.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, in a healthy personality, you're able to do all three, depending on the situation. If someone's going to attack
I don't
you,
know. I don't know how you're doing this. It's almost as if I'm telling you, people. I have no idea how this woman is doing this, but she's freaking me out because
okay, well, I'm
keep
very
going. Nope, you just keep going. I'm gonna see. My
so
notes are all jumbled together based upon how I looked at information. She has no idea how I've done that, but she's like, I have not put up stuff that you've actually been saying. And I'm going like, how did she do that? You're scaring me, Darlene. You're scaring me, woman. You're scaring me to death. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. No, keep going.
a
Healthy
healthy
person.
personality can
Yeah.
do all three, depending on the situation, what's appropriate.
Okay.
But codependents, narcissists, people that have had a dysfunctional childhood, usually,
Hmm.
they get stuck in one groove, basically.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you want to please your boss to keep your job, but
Hmm.
there may be situations where you say no and you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
So, or with a friend, you know.
Mhm.
So it's very hard for codependents to set boundaries and say no, usually, until they
But
get into recovery. So they do things because they feel they have to. It's like a compulsion as
eh,
opposed to a choice.
okay, that means then they're gonna have to do some work, and you use the phrase of transforming yourself. Explain more on that, please.
Well, that's what we call this recovery. When people talk about recovery, that's what that means. And my book, Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist, is really about personal transformation. Because as I said, your happiness is an inside job, starting with self love and valuing yourself, valuing your needs. Even in a healthy relationship, you can't make the other person responsible
Mhm.
for all of your needs and for your happiness.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people that are depressed in good relationships.
Yeah.
So,
True. True.
with nice, loving people. So, if you build yourself up, then you have to confront abuse. You have to be able to do it in the right way, in an assertive way, and
Mhm.
valuing yourself. And my book goes into a lot of scripts and strategies and checklists and everything of how to do this with a narcissist or any, it really applies to any kind of abuser.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship or a life situation, not even a relationship, where you're really unhappy day in and day out,
Mhm.
you're, I would say you're out of alignment with your soul.
Mm.
Your soul is out of alignment. It's not meant to be unhappy. If you feel that you can't express yourself, if you don't feel safe, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Your
Right.
soul wants to fully express yourself. And by the way, on my website, what is codependency.com, the banner across the top, if you look at it, are steps towards in transforming yourself to recovery. So yeah, you click those little arrows on the right, and then you get to the next step and the next. Detaching is one of them. So I go through about 9 different steps coming out of denial. Yeah. The first one you showed was building self-esteem, self-love, and it's a process of self-transformation of, yeah, and that's the definition of codependency there. Coming out of learning new habits, new skills. A lot of recovery is about learning new skills. People say to me, I was in therapy for 10 years and I'm learning more in one session with you. We're talking, because all I did was like share my feelings over and over for years. Well, that's not enough. You really have to learn some new skills, like how to be assertive. That was one of the
Mm-hmm.
first books I wrote. How to raise your self-esteem. How do you do that? Because self-esteem is learned in childhood. So you can do esteemable acts and certain things, how you talk to yourself and what you do to raise your self-esteem. You can definitely do that. That's within your power. No one else can do that for you. No amount of praise can change the feelings of shame inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When it comes to who we are inside and our self-esteem, and we start to approach, I'm going to use your book to start this off, what we're about to discuss now. We are not going to kidnap you all day, so we're going to go here. We've gone halfway through the show. We're going to now really turn attention to this new book and some other points. The new book, again, is Dating. Everyone, please. Dating, Loving, and Leaving a Narcissist. It's a great deal of information that will help you navigate toward a healthy lifestyle. When it comes to dating, I'm old school. I say courtship. That's just me. But when someone is looking for a long-term relationship, how can your book help them start on that path, but yet they're dealing with a narcissist?
Well, I point out your red flags.
Okay.
Someone, not even a narcissist, someone emotionally unavailable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then your blind spots to yourself. So if you're depressed, if you have codependency, if you don't value yourself, you're at risk for idealizing someone, rushing into a relationship thinking someone else is going to, this person will make me happy. This person is going to, that's the, you maybe have heard the term rescue a lot. I didn't
Yeah,
used to
right.
know what that meant. That
Right.
means make me happy, make me feel good.
Yeah.
So this prince, so guess what? You come to dating and a relationship with that mindset, and it may not even be conscious, but if you're always like searching, I got to meet somebody, and is this
Mm-hmm.
one that, you know, did
Looking,
he call,
looking,
did
looking.
he not call, and all this kind of furtive
Yeah.
effort, you may give off a signal that you're desperate
Mm-hmm.
and be very anxious when you're with the person. So then you're not really relaxed and being real
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to make waves. You don't want this person to not call you. You want to please them. So you can start off on the wrong foot that way if you don't feel good about yourself to begin with. And by the way, a narcissist, on the other hand, also wants to please you. Surprisingly, they want to win you over. They do a lot of what's called impression management.
Mm.
Is that on your list?
I have never. Okay, so impression management. I missed
Yeah,
that one. No, go
yeah, I
ahead.
talk about it in my book. So, narcissists are all about impression management because they have a need for admiration.
Mm-hmm.
They have an excessive need for people to admire them because of the shame, again, underneath. They want to get it externally.
Okay.
It's like a codependent on to the max. So they want to get it from you, and they'll do what it takes, wine and dine you, flatter you,
Mm-hmm.
to hook you, to reel you in, love bombing. I have a whole section on that. And if you're really, set on you have to have this relationship and you're desperate for it,
Mm-hmm.
the clock is ticking or whatever, you've been single too long. And so you're like a sitting duck for
Mm-hmm.
someone to come along and sweep you off your feet. So if it's too good to be true, it probably
It
is.
probably is too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
The next item, loving a narcissist.
Okay.
And now that alone caught a lot of people's attention. Is that possible?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so
Because,
what do you mean by it? Loving a narcissist?
well, people call me all the time and they said, I don't want to leave my husband. I don't want to leave my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Help me to improve this relationship. The subtitle of my book is Essential Tools for Improving or Leaving Narcissistic and Abusive Relationships. So it's not just with a narcissist, it could be a borderline or just someone
Mm-hmm.
who's highly defensive and abusive.
Okay.
And so they by the way, an abusive relationship is harder to leave than a healthy one for a lot of reasons.
Are you trying to direct the show now? You're getting ahead of me. That's
Trauma
like
bonds.
that's like what's the next one? Go ahead.
Okay, well, let me finish it. So,
Loving a narcissist.
so
Let's rewind that. Okay, loving a narcissist. Go right
yeah.
ahead.
So, and I even have a blog. How can I love an abuser?
Oh,
Well, there are a lot of reasons. First of all, they're not abusive all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So they might be charming, and maybe they provide a really exciting lifestyle.
That's confusing though. That's so confusing, right?
They maybe have a great sense of humor, and sometimes fun to be with. And then there's Mr. Hyde. Okay, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Hyde comes out.
Yeah, but then people go on back into denial, and they do something called splitting that narcissists do. So when you're feeling love, you forget about the negative. And for a narcissist, when they're angry, they forget about the positive. So there's a parallel here, and it goes back to infancy, and I go into this in the book, and childhood, to really understand the mindset. But codependents do this too. So they might go out with someone they like, and then the week in between, they're devaluing them, or then they see them and then they like them again, and they do this flip-flopping, and they're used to relationships where it's on again, off again, loving, hating. So love and hate in the married state often come together.
So I have to ask you, unbelievable you just said that. I am now going to ask you this. You just said the codependent will do that. Mm-hmm. They will enjoy that particular evening with that person. That week in between, they're now, in essence, as you said, devaluing that person. Yeah. And then they're on that high again when they see them again.
They could do that too, right? Looking for faults.
Wow.
Things like that. And so part of that is maybe fear of intimacy, fear of being hurt.
Abandonment.
Yeah, so they're looking like, okay, or maybe trust issues. They've been hurt before, so they're start tearing the person down.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah, it could be the reverse, that then maybe something bad happened on the date, and then in between they're feeling all romantic, But abusers, particularly narcissists, do this to an extreme. So when they're angry or they feel hurt, criticized, their shield gets punctured, they will go into rage, and they don't even remember that you are taking care of their children, that you just had wonderful sex the night before or something like that.
Is it blanked out? Is it like
totally? You become the enemy. This is also true for borderline personality. They'll lift you up.
Fascinating to me. Go ahead.
They'll devalue you. Yeah. So they don't see you, and you can't take this personally. This is their defense mechanism.
So I do want to go to the next aspect. Right. Leaving a narcissist. And thank you so much. I apologize I had to interrupt what you had me addicted to listening to. But leaving a narcissist, that is something that is a part of the title of your book. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. So when you start putting into action the steps that I include in my book, and start being able to ask for your needs and start to set boundaries, the relationship will start to change. And you have to hang in there, and it really usually requires some outside support of a coach, a therapist, a sponsor, and a 12-step program, because when you make these changes and start to take back your power and shift the power balance in the relationship, the narcissist is going to start to freak out. And they might have rage or make threats to leave or whatever.
Darlene, I have to tell you this. That should really be a title of your next book or a chapter in a book. Freak out. That? I think that the narcissist will freak out. I think that's a really great way to describe what happens. They freak out. Why do they freak out?
Well, they're all about being on top and having the power. And then you start to, like that seesaw, you start to raise your power and have more confidence. And suddenly they don't want an equal relationship. So part of the strategy is to keep reminding them, for the relationship to work, it has to be a two-way street. We both have to get our needs met. Now, narcissism exists on a
I told you, hey, I told you I was stalking you, girl.
yeah,
I got so much stuff down here we'll never get to, at least in this show. Go ahead. No, please keep
well,
going. It has to be a two-way street.
yeah. And narcissism exists on a continuum.
Okay.
And some narcissists are more introspective. Some can actually feel guilty. They don't usually apologize, but some are more introspective and can learn. And so you'll see positive changes, but you have to be strong when they up the ante, when they start to make threats and start to react. So you need support. Anyway, the point of this is that the relationship can really change for the better. And I've seen this with my clients, and it might be fine for you. With some narcissists, they're not going to change. They might be more sociopathic, cruel, malicious. You're not taking any responsibility, breaking laws, immoral. That person may not be capable of changing. Other narcissists go to therapy. 17% of therapy patients are narcissists, believe it or not.
Wow.
So they can change their behavior. And you'll be able, after you do this, to evaluate whether your relationship is salvageable and what's the prognosis. And then if you choose not to stay, you'll be in a better place, because it's going to take courage to leave. You know, if you have trouble setting little boundaries and saying no, a divorce is a huge boundary, and you're going to get a lot of pushback. So a lot of people are afraid to confront a narcissist, afraid of the legal process, afraid of being dragged into court, or losing their children, or the expense, a lot of reasons. So I give a lot of tips about that and how to prepare for that and how to deal with the legal system. And again, but having a life to go towards rather than just running away from pain, something that's more important to you, even than your relationship, that gives you happiness, so that your life does not revolve around this one person that's draining you. Right. So detaching and investing in yourself, that's part of the transformation.
You talk about making sure to have a healthy lifestyle a few times throughout your books, because this is an unhealthy one. But a person would need to make sure that they're happy on the way out, not thinking getting out is just going to make you happy. I'm kind of touching on that. We'll have to talk more about it.
I mean, if there's violence, you need to get immediate call hotline and be safe. But there are a lot of ways where you can disengage. And like I mentioned, did I mention Jade? You don't justify.
No, you didn't. But go ahead. No, please do that one, because I don't have that one up. I have something else. I'm going to do that in just a second.
It's not in the book. No. So that's a little tip.
Okay.
You don't justify. Well, I do have a list of do's and don'ts of like what you shouldn't do. And these are in the, you don't justify, you don't argue, you don't defend, and you don't explain. Jade.
One more time.
All the things
you don't justify. I'm going to have to do that one more time, please. You don't justify.
Right. You don't argue.
You
don't defend. And you don't explain. A narcissist is not interested in the facts. So when you try to explain and justify, it's like saying, will you approve me? You hand over your power and self-esteem. But if you just say, well, I disagree, and walk away, then they're left holding the bag. They can't get a high by putting you down, because that's what they want to do. They want to win the argument. You don't argue with them.
No, don't do it.
Don't try to convince them. All this reacting, it's normal things you normally do in another relationship, feeds their power and drains your own. So you have to learn how to deal with them in a way that changes. Yes, it becomes okay. So let me address that. When you're not getting your needs met over and over, and you keep trying, it's like
excuse me.
You keep trying and pleasing the narcissist, hoping that you're going to get what you want. It doesn't happen. Maybe occasionally they're nice or charming or loving, and then gives you hope. It's kind of like playing a slot machine. Once in a while, you get the 3 cherries and you get a jackpot. But so you'll keep playing and you'll keep playing and you keep losing your winnings and losing your money. And it's hard to leave, like gambling. And so it's an addictive process. And they call that, research calls it intermittent reinforcement. And they did this with rats, and they would feed them and when they pushed the lever, and then once in a while when they pushed the lever, and they'd keep pressing and pressing for the occasional win. And here's the kicker. So then they stopped giving them any reward, and the rats kept pushing it and pushing it. So even when you're not getting any reward, you still hang in there, hoping that this romantic, amiable person you went out with is going to magically come back. Because what you saw that before, and you keep hoping that they're going to come back. That's a fantasy. They're not going to come back. That was all a ruse to win you, because they were trying to get you to admire them. First, they idealize you when you're dating them, and then after they win you and you're hooked, then they start fault finding and devaluing you. So.
You have an amazing ability, Darlene, to systematically break things down so that people can actually absorb it and eat it. I'm going to say the phrase, what you do is better than what I'm about to say, but it's almost as if you spoon feed us the information so we can process it. You have an amazing ability to do that. I have to throw this up as we're moving toward that time frame that we're going to have to end the show, but I hope you're ready for this. Here we go.
This is like
what is this is like a Groucho Marx show. I'm just gonna just put stuff that's may not mean anything to you younger people, but anyhow. So Q-tip, please explain that to everybody.
Like Jeopardy. Here's the answer. Now tell me what it is. Okay. So Q-tip, quit taking it personally. It's very important.
Just love it. When I saw that, I mean, I just listen. Please make a T-shirt or something. Make a coffee mug and do that. I will buy it. I'm telling you, if people will buy that Q-tip, and then on the back side of it, or underneath it, or inside the cup, just what it means. A great thing to keep in mind. Why is it a great thing to keep in mind before we have to end the show?
Because the abusers and narcissists, their favorite defense is projection. So think of this: an accusation is a confession. I just heard it today from someone else.
Yeah.
So
true.
Well, they're going to do that reversal. They're going to put you on the defensive, and they want to bring you down, remember, to raise themselves up. They'll find fault with you. They'll bring up the past. They'll switch topics, whatever they can to deflect responsibility. They never want to take responsibility, and they will just shift the blame and, write down conversations and see where they turn it to put you on the defensive.
That's remember, a good one.
Them, best defense is an offense. Go on the attack. And it's usually all about them. They're just projecting their own, they don't see themselves. They project it onto you. You're an extension of them. They don't even see you as a separate individual.
Okay, now, this is the hardest part of the show. We are about to end the show, and I have some stuff especially just for you. Now, I've got 4 things for you. Technically 5, but we'll get to that in a second. 4 things for you that I'm going to be able to mention to you right now. I'm going to put 3 things up on the screen. Excuse me, I rephrase that. I'm going to mention 3 things to you, and feel free to answer them, of course, from your heart.
Oh, this is like wisdom. A pop quiz.
This is the only way I could think of trying to put a show together for you with the time frame that we had. So here we go. The 3 that I'm about to ask you are from viewers that I didn't get to with you last time. And it's not going to be anything you're expecting. So trust me on that. So I picked out these things, and here we go. The first one, Darlene, tell us what makes Darlene Lancer sad.
What makes me sad?
Just whatever comes out of you.
Well, I'm thinking. Well, one thing, a lot of things. One thing that makes me really sad is how we're exploiting the planet.
Okay.
And raping it, basically, and destroying wildlife and forests and ignoring that the planet is really a living entity
Mm-hmm.
that we need, that feeds us, polluting the air, the rivers, the oceans. So, and that's for generations. That really makes me sad. And when I see people publicly shamed and groups of people,
Mm-hmm.
minorities being victimized, that hurts me too. Or like the war in Ukraine.
Okay.
So,
We I picked these from statements that were made
mhm.
before we ever did the first show. I just never gave them to you then.
Mhm.
And I got not a lot of pushback, but a few people were like, "Hey, I sent in that question, you didn't." So here we go. The next question: what is it, Darlene Lancer, that makes you happy?
Well, I feel very happy when I'm in nature.
Okay,
I love being in nature. I like hiking and the beauty of nature. Um,
that's my thing, girl. I like
being with my
hiking. Is it
grandchildren.
okay?
Yeah,
Hiking, one of my favorites. Go ahead.
yeah. Being with my grandchildren and
Oh,
seeing, I love these YouTubes about funny things that animals do.
okay, all right.
And when they're interspecies, like, friendships, that's like
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay. Animal friendship. The funny things that animals do. Yeah. Here we go. What are three three songs that or music that you like? Three artists, three songs, whatever it may be. Give us three of them so we can get some insight on the type of music that Darlene Lancer likes.
Mm. I really
Okay.
love Latin music.
Okay.
Como un bolero is one of my favorites.
Okay. I'll have to.
So,
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. So Latin
yeah,
music.
Latin music. So I love bolero music. I love tango
Bolero.
music.
Okay.
So Oblivion is a famous tango song.
Okay.
So those two. And oh, can I open my iTunes? Catching me on the spot.
I didn't expect you to say that, but you
Oh,
could do whatever you want.
there's one that makes me really happy.
Okay.
And that's You're the First, the Last. What's the name of it?
My everything.
Yeah, You're the First, You My Everything. That really makes me happy. And um, Dance Me to the End of Time,
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
that one. So
Uh-huh. I know what that is. Okay. Pretty neat. That's four. That's pretty good.
I
You did
love
really good.
music. That
You did really
music
good.
can make me
Yes.
happy too.
You,
So,
you you do no doubt love music because here we go. Now this is mine. This is mine right here. I'm gonna put up on the screen. You love music, but can you tell me when you see this word, what emotions and what is your history with this word?
oh, I think you've been reading my personal blogs. I wanted to be a dancer growing up.
Yes.
I studied dance for many years. Um, and so, yeah, I love dance. And so, I don't know. And then I did a lot of social dancing, a lot of salsa and mambo, and
Really?
tried to learn tango, but that was pretty hard.
Uh-huh. So
So,
is there video of this these activities?
not a me,
Okay. All right.
but
Just checking.
there's a story. There's a couple. I think there's a story on my website of a dance club that I went to. So,
Yeah. So you've had this this feeling toward attachment toward enjoyment with dancing. If you had to say, when do you remember this really kicking in? Before we leave the show today, give us a little insight on
um,
dancing. How long it's been attached to your
oh,
toes and to your heart?
well, since I was around 3 years old, I think I was dancing when the ice capades were on TV. I
Okay.
was like trying to imitate them and dance,
Cool.
and I thought that they could see the skaters on TV could see me. I remember my mother telling me that.
Okay. They
So I
can't
was
see.
always
Yeah.
loving dancing. It gave me a lot of joy. But I have to tell you, this is kind of relevant to what we're saying. I had an injury and then I
Mm,
couldn't dance. And it
mm,
was like so sad to me
mm,
because that was one of the ways that I really, lifted myself up.
mhm.
So what did I do? I started writing. So if I hadn't
Ah,
had that injury, I would have just
you
kept
would be done.
dancing because I was going out like 3 or 4 nights a week to clubs dancing.
Wow.
And instead, I was staying home and I was writing. So
Look at
I
that.
took writing classes, and then that started giving me a lot of joy. I kind of moved my creativity into
Yeah.
another field.
Yeah.
So if I had that, I wouldn't have written all these books
Look at
if I
that.
kept dancing, because that was my
Well,
first.
I think that we are all honored to watch you linguistically dance through your words and take us through this tango in relationships. I could probably keep going, but I shouldn't because I'm going to embarrass myself and not yourself. So listen, thank you, my friend, for doing this. I truly appreciate it and getting to know you a little bit better. And of course, you know, you're always going to learn something here at Narc Abuse TV Network. We hope that you've learned a little bit more about Darlene Lancer and her book side and her human side, but especially the fact that well, she loves dancing. So if you watch this show and you're gonna reach out to Darlene, make sure you send her the little dancing flamingo lady or whatever emoji to let her know that you support her. But my friend, thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it,
It was
and
really
we'll get
fun.
together again and do some more. But
Let's do
right
that.
now, oh man, an hour and 7 minutes. I went 7 minutes over. So
Okay.
thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
We'll see you later.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Everybody
Bye.
have a great
Thank you.
weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.
Okay.